what if one of the world's most famous martial artists didn't simply die from a headache pill? On the 20th of July 1973, Bruce Lee was only 32 years old. He was at the height of his career. Enter the Dragon was about to turn him into an international superstar, and he was working on his next major film, Game of Death. But that evening, everything changed. Bruce Lee went to an apartment in Hong Kong to discuss the film. Later that night, he complained of a severe headache. He was given an Equagesic painkiller and went to lie down for a rest. He never woke up. When Bruce Lee was found unconscious, doctors were called and he was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. But it was too late. The martial arts legend was dead. He was just 32 years old. And almost immediately, questions began surrounding his final hours. Why had Bruce Lee died so suddenly? Why was he at actress Betty Ting Pei's apartment? And what exactly caused the massive swelling discovered in his brain? The official investigation found that Bruce Lee had suffered severe cerebral edema, dangerous swelling of the brain. The coroner concluded that he had suffered a hypersensitivity reaction to Equagesic, the painkiller he had taken earlier that evening. His death was officially recorded as death by misadventure. But that explanation didn't stop the rumors, because Bruce Lee had already suffered a serious medical episode just 2 months earlier. On the 10th of May 1973, he collapsed during a dubbing session in Hong Kong. Doctors discovered that his brain was swollen. He survived that episode and eventually returned to work. But only 2 months later, he was dead. And that strange connection became one of the biggest unanswered questions surrounding his death. Then, decades later, another theory emerged. In 2022, researchers published a study proposing that Bruce Lee may have died from hyponatremia. In simple terms, hyponatremia occurs when the body's sodium concentration becomes dangerously diluted. One possible cause is consuming more water than the kidneys can effectively remove. Severe hyponatremia can cause the brain to swell. The researchers suggested that this mechanism could explain Bruce Lee's cerebral edema. But there's an important distinction. This was a scientific hypothesis, not a new official autopsy conclusion. It did not prove that Bruce Lee died from drinking too much water, and it certainly did not prove murder. But the medical theories weren't the only ones. For decades, rumors claimed Bruce Lee had been targeted by organized crime. Some stories connected his death to Hong Kong's riots. Others claimed that powerful people wanted him eliminated. And then came one of the strangest theories of all. Dimmak, the so-called death touch. According to martial arts legend, a skilled fighter could strike a specific point on the body and cause a delayed death. Some people later suggested that Bruce Lee may have been secretly attacked using such a technique. But there is no credible forensic evidence proving that Dimmak had anything to do with Bruce Lee's death. It remains folklore, not an established explanation. Then came another tragedy that made the story even more mysterious. 20 years after Bruce Lee died, his son Brandon Lee was killed during the filming of The Crow in 1993. The death was an accidental shooting caused by a firearm prop safety failure. The tragedy shocked Hollywood. And because Bruce Lee's unfinished Game of Death also contained a fictional storyline involving a stage shooting, people began talking about a mysterious Lee family curse. But again, there is no evidence of a supernatural connection. Two devastating accidents separated by 2 decades can feel impossible to explain. But coincidence isn't proof of a curse. So, what really killed Bruce Lee? The official explanation remains cerebral edema associated with a reaction to Equagesic. A later scientific paper proposed hyponatremia as another possible medical explanation. The theories about poisoning, triad involvement, dim mark, or a family curse remain unproven, and perhaps that's what makes this case so fascinating. Bruce Lee seemed almost invincible. He transformed martial arts. He became one of the most recognizable stars in the world, and yet, at just 32 years old, his life ended suddenly in a Hong Kong apartment. More than 50 years later, people are still asking the same question. Was Bruce Lee simply the victim of a tragic medical event? Or is there still something about his final hours that we don't know? What do you think? Tell us your theory in the comments. Cold Trail Cases, uncovering the stories left behind.